Um, Christmas is the season of giving, and my friends Miles and Schnick gave me this game to review, so that's why I'm talking about a Vietnam War horror game shooter in the middle of Christmas time. He said, as if there was a point to this rather than just being pushed off by other obligations. Shellshock 2 Blood Trails, go!
You play as Nate Walker, a new draftee into the Vietnam War who's immediately pulled away for a special assignment. Walker's brother Cal is the only survivor of a project called White Knight, which appears to have given him super strength but driven him hopelessly insane. The army is desperate to get Cal back to normal Braintown and thinks that Walker can help, but then the Viet Cong attacks and Cal escapes. It's up to you to fight your way through the Viet Cong and the hostile war-torn jungles of Vietnam to rescue your brother and secure White Knight for the American government. The whole three of you who actually played the first Shellshock are probably confused as balls right now because Cal Walker here actually was the hero of the first game, but he wasn't involved in any of this White Knight shit. Shellshock Nam 67, near as I can tell, was just a normal army warfare shooter that focused on a grounded and relentlessly bleak tone to try and convey the sheer horrors of war. It didn't have super soldiers or secret science projects. From what I've read, it barely even had a story. But then again, the first Shellshock also had a completely different developer and was in third person. It really makes me wonder why designate this a sequel when you change dev teams, genres, tone, and entire story premise. It's Still Life 2 all over again. Shellshock 2 is played as a first-person shooter. You have regenerating health, but there's not really a cover system of any kind. Instead, you have a massive health pool to where you have to fight about 4 enemies at once before anybody becomes any kind of a threat. And I'm playing on the medium difficulty. How much of a cakewalk is easy? As far as shooters go, the gameplay feels really clunky and awkward. The aiming feels really stiff, but that could just be my individual suckiness. You can only carry one pistol and one rifle at a time, and given how useless pistols are by default, they barely carry any ammo and take several shots to kill unless you go for the head, you really only get to carry one weapon at once. Most of the time that's going to be an M16 or an AK-47, and you will spend ages trying to figure out the difference. The AK kind of feels really sloppy and inaccurate, like it barely hits enemies even when you aim right on them. I don't know. Generic machine guns are what you've got for most of the game. There are friendly NPCs that don't do shit, running through a lot of the early levels. The VC tend to wear tan uniforms and the American soldiers wear green, but the colors are so washed out I could never tell a difference. Thanks, 360-era Zack Snyder art direction! The game is so damn dark, I had to crank the brightness sky high to be able to spot any enemies, and even then, the indicators of where you're being shot from are so vague that it can be near impossible to tell what's hitting you. It just lights up one entire side of the screen, and it lights up in white like you're an android from Aliens. Why yes, I went for an android joke because the alternative for why white liquid keeps spurting out onto the screen was too gross for me to read out loud. But speaking of cum, how come it's such a pain in the ass to pick up ammo? You don't pick up ammunition automatically, despite this being a shooter where you don't have to worry about inventory management. You have to walk over an ammo pickup and press Y, and you have to be standing in one insanely specific spot or else it doesn't work. Who the hell ever said to themselves, yeah, it should be hard and also manual to pick up ammunition in a shooter. I want to miss key pickups, and I want the option of being useless in combat. Oh, and the prompt to pick up ammo at a glance looks identical to the prompt to switch weapons, so until you figure out what's going on and learn to spot the subtle differences in weapon profiles, you'll constantly drop your gun on accident and wonder what happened. This was made by Rebellion, who cut their teeth on shooters. How did they make so many basic mistakes? The first level, you're fighting your way through a town that's overrun with VC, trying to get to safety, except the level is kind of annoyingly confined and isn't signposted for shit. All over the place are doors you can't open, and I almost immediately got lost and turned around to the level entrance. The most I can say for the game is that it has some decent atmosphere of oppression and horror just by nature of being in a war zone where your side is badly losing. You find mutilated corpses clearly torn apart by bare hands to build dread for the super soldier the game revolves around. But anytime that you start getting immersed, something stupid happens. You rendezvous with some other soldiers, you're told to secure a bridge, but all the enemies are dead on their own and the bridge is marked complete. just out of nowhere. There's a minigun facing where 0 enemies spawn, and then there's a town square shootout where the game just drops enemies fully surrounding you and you're shot from 50 directions and you're dead. And later, the same objective pops up twice at once. It's hard to get immersed in a bad game when it's the first level and it already feels half finished. I'm almost certain that I interrupted a scripted melee QuickTime event by shooting the guy in the junk. You run into a Viet Cong leader, Trang, who's also after Cal, but luckily you're saved by your commander, Griffin. And then Griffin breaks orders to drive into a quarantine zone to do nothing. What it's quarantined from is not explained. He leads you into an ambush where your car gets blown up, and then he ditches you to go do something. He dumps you in the middle of nowhere to aimlessly wander to another group of soldiers for evac, because that's pretty much the objective of every freaking level. Mission 2 is just trekking some random jungles to arbitrary waypoints because the game said so. You're a bewildered jackass blindly going where you're told for lack of better options. And if you're tempted to give the game credit for realism, depicting the chaos and uncertainty of a war zone, Walker starts having psychic visions of his brother from when he first went crazy. I am not making that up. The hero of our wartime horror game can now see through time through his brother's eyes, and he never questions the validity of the visions or how he got this power. What the hell?
I'm guessing he got this power because when he touches his brother in the hospital, you get a flash of Freddy Krueger. Like, seriously, that's just Freddy Krueger. Why?
You follow one of your men being pulled through a tunnel by a super soldier, you walk through some caves where nothing happens and fight through trenches. There's a shooting gallery sequence that goes on so long you think the game's broken or you're meant to run away, but no. Eventually the enemies stop spawning so that you can whoa!
Even dreams don't get this good, baby. I'm all real. You wanna touch?
The dark, realism-focused, nihilistic shooter series now has a horned-up, half-naked lady soldier, and she's an actress whose agent followed her into a war zone? Is this supposed to be a comedy routine? In a Vietnam shooter? There's a somewhat creative set piece where you're holed up in a ditch where you have to hold off enemies from 4 different directions, except there's a radio that's loudly calling you non-friggin' stop!
Hold up, Orphan 1. Do you copy? 1, this is command. Do you copy? Hold up, Orphan 1. Orphan 1.
You can't answer it! Believe me, I tried! The radio's not giving you any useful information, it's just ringing incessantly to piss you off because nobody will answer the fucking phone! Okay, I've got to ask, is this thing going for psychological horror? Like, is Horny the Elf here doing the Silent Hill 2 thing where she's a projection of Walker's libido and the radio is a kind of mental warfare? Because it's not the only time that the game has infuriating audio design. Multiple times the game just randomly edits a screaming baby into the audio, and Walker constantly dry heaves like an asthmatic on a treadmill. These elements are so disconnected and stupid, you feel like the devs are screwing around more than it coalescing into any kind of atmosphere.
Man can't even ask a question, shit!
From potato agent to the stars, do not forget his famous.
My brother in Christ, would you pick a tone and stick with it? Walker gets picked up in a boat heading for a safe house, but an infected dude is aboard and makes it crash. So you wander aimlessly to another safe house. This level is a never-ending stretch of quick-time event traps that kill you instantly, followed by a minefield that you need to cross. Guys, you do realize that the mines are meant to go under the ground, right? This level is so friggin' stupid. Oh shit! QuickTime events on a controller I've barely used and haven't memorized. Joy. It took me way too long to figure out that you can just shoot the mines to trigger them, which I don't think you're supposed to be able to do, Because there's a scripted event where a boar sets off one of the mines and blows up, and if you detonate the mine ahead of time, the boar just blows up anyway for no reason. Oh, you can just walk around the trap at the end of the minefield. Jeez, I need to pay a little more attention. Son of a bitch! And then I have to once again remind you that I am not making this up. You come across a giant abandoned Resident Evil mansion in the middle of Vietnamese jungle where they hand you a shotgun to fight hordes of zombies. The dark, realistic military shooter is now a zombie wannabe horror game. Why? Because White Knight. The only explanation that you ever get for all this stupid crap. Here's the thing. The game does not tell you what in the literal hell White Knight is. They pause to mention it while you're getting an injection of some formula that nobody explains. They talk about a secret army project, and Cal clearly has super strength, so I just assumed that White Knight was a super soldier serum. It would explain why the military is so adamant about getting Cal recaptured and in tip-top shape. But then they start talking about quarantines and contagions and infected, and none of it ever gets explained, but they talk like Cal is spreading a virus. So White Knight isn't a super soldier project, it's a zombie plague? Why are they so hell-bent on specifically retrieving Cal and keeping him alive then? Is he patient zero and they need his blood for an antidote? If so, why did they need Walker for that? They had Cal in custody at the start of the game, and characters all throughout the game will keep talking about wanting you to lead them to White Knight like it's a singular thing. So what the hell does that mean? Literally the entire game's story is just a conga line of people bitching at you about White Knight, but nobody can tell you what the hell it is. And again, playing the first game doesn't help because it doesn't mention White Knight either. So you're just shooting unexplained zombies on a wild goose chase with no idea what the hell's going on. And these zombies are piss easy to kill, by the way. They only die quickly to a headshot, but they shamble towards you so slowly that you have eons to line up that headshot. And given that I repeatedly saw zombies die while I was reloading, I think the game has a bleed mechanic where you can shoot them in the torso but run away and eventually they'll die on their own. You're never told about it, but then you're never told about the Shellshock mechanic that the manual rants on about either. The only problem with the zombies is when they get close enough to attack you because they spaz out like your buckshot is laced with cocaine. Yeah, try to land a precise headshot with stiff controls at point-blank range on wildly thrashing zombies. That's fun combat! Oh, and you get grenades for when you ever get cornered by a group of zombies, but every time I threw a grenade, I got one of them, if I was lucky. They seem to have shit splash damage. Another glorious staple of shooters from the era. And come to think of it, the third level introduced flares that you can equip instead of the grenades. Flares that don't do shit because you have a flashlight and a brightness setting. Just why? Why are there mines leading up this hill when the hill leads to nowhere? Why is there a prominent staircase in the mansion that does nothing? Were these maps left unfinished? I think everything was left unfinished because the game can't even keep its own story straight. You get to the mansion, you fight shitloads of zombies, then you find out Trang got here first and slaughtered all the soldiers to trap you, and then they make a big deal about how zombies just arrived. Did someone just forget to tell the level designers how the story is supposed to go? I don't even know how you screw this up. Oh, look, a mini-boss, a zombie with a bucket on his head to block the headshots, who swings 2 hatchets and takes about 100 hits to kill and is really easy to avoid. Congratulations on finally having a third enemy type. The comic relief man picks you up in a boat, so of course the boat immediately crashes. And then you run through random jungles fleeing Viet Cong to another evacuation point again. This level opens with a turret section that pissed me the hell off. Enemies constantly spawn in to where about 5 people are breathing down your neck at all times, and maybe it wouldn't be so hard except that enemies you can't friggin' see through the foliage will constantly spawn to the right and overhead. The damage indicators are so vague you can never tell where you're being shot from. Half the enemies are practically invisible and they don't stop coming. You have zero indicator for how close the turret is to overheating, and said turret takes so long to recover that if it overheats once, you're basically dead. And if you ever hop off the turret to take cover and heal, the enemies immediately charge your position and kill you for not playing the game right. Congratulations, you successfully replicated the feeling of being trapped in a jungle with a hostile guerrilla force. It sucks balls, and it's pissing me off. After more than half a damned hour and some rage divots in my couch, I finally beat this turret section. Wait, what the hell? Gas? They flood you with gas that kills you before you can find your way out? Well, thank crap, the game at least dropped a checkpoint! And then you have to use your sloppy, inaccurate weapons to dig tons of enemies out of cover at an anonymous temple. Can I go back to fighting zombies, please? Thank you! Apparently getting zombified removes your ability to tell when someone has the high ground and a giant wall is in your way, because I had like a dozen zombies marching into a wall trying to get at my gizzards. I know that you want me to drop down into the pit of zombies, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wander away, let them piss off, and when I come back, they'll head back to the wall through my firing range. Oh, look, one of them's trying to glitch his way up the cliff to reach me. This game is so jank that it hurts. Oh, and Horny the Elf is a ghost now. Yeah, the ghost of the bikini-clad lady soldier from earlier comes to try and tempt you into joining the dark side, and that is not me exaggerating her dialogue.
You want to come with me into the dark? Plenty there for a man of your talents.
Like, I get the point. You're supposed to question whether the ghosts are real or if Walker's just going nuts, except the game's tone is so mixed and stupid that you just take it straight, facepalm, and move on. Like, the zombies and the psychic time travel visions are real, but we're supposed to question the ghosts. Right. You run to another evac, but your boss Griffin gets bitten by a zombie, and nobody does anything as he blatantly turns before their very eyes and he crashes the helicopter. Honestly, I'm just confused because I thought Griffin was the guy they executed back at the Resident Evil mansion. This game cannot establish characters for shit. Now you trek aimlessly through the jungle looking for an evac again. Only now the jungle is full of zombies that charge you like you've got the last Taylor Swift tickets. This opening fight, the zombies kill you in 2 hits, or in some cases, just 1 hit. I have no idea what's going on here because no other zombies the entire rest of the game hit this hard. I want to give the game the benefit of the doubt because the instruction booklet mentions a Shellshock mechanic. I think if bad shit happens in the story or you walk through an area with a lot of traumatizing corpses, then Walker freaks out and you take damage and run out of stamina faster. Except that's pure guesswork on my part because nothing in either the game or the manual itself explains how Shellshock works. Or even if it's a deliberate mechanic, taking damage 3 times faster at fixed points because the game said so is a stupid-ass idea. Although granted, Walker was just in a helicopter crash, but by now you'd think he would be used to it. This level has all of one kind of interesting encounter. You get to another temple and have to scavenge ammo while fighting zombies and Viet Cong that also fight each other. But the rest of the stage is just wandering a linear path, fighting zombies 1 or 2 at a time to where you're never in any real danger. It's seriously like they just dropped random zombies in an empty map to fill time on a deadline, while the game itself is just kind of slow and pointless for the bulk of its playtime. Oh, and even though the entire level telegraphs hardcore that you're gonna fight your zombified boss Griffin as a boss, I'm pretty sure that you never see him again. And if you do, it's not called out. They forgot to add a boss fight! Walker has another psychic vision that Cal is headed to White Knight at a giant Buddha temple, which I'm not sure narrows it down since I've run to and shot through at least 2 or 3 temples already, and they won't be the last. You get to a convoy of trucks for another evac, but these come pre-wrecked, which yes, I will count. Because, by the power of lazy writing, Trang just knows exactly where you are at all times. Trang takes Walker's visions as gospel and sends a team to capture Cal and White Knight, but not before you have to use quick time events to survive Trang's torture. You mash A to survive 2 punches. And that's it. Zombies attack and you escape. I've seen children's shows and kids' movies with more intense torture than that. I've watched kids' movies that are more torture than that.
Do you like bubbles?
This prison level sucks. You're given a shitty pump-action rifle that fires 1 bullet at a time, and you can't even pick up the enemy's guns due to what I assume is a game bug. If you don't find the ammo box tucked down one of the docks, you're hosed. And given that there's a major fork early on that leads nowhere, poking around off the beaten path is generally a really bad idea. Oh, and you'll constantly hear gunfire from the enemies shooting into walls trying to hit you, to the point I repeatedly caught enemies halfway clipping through walls trying to get at me. And then you run to a cave where the zombies spawn infinitely because this is the one point the entire game that running away actually works. This whole level is just... You get on with a group of soldiers who want to capture Trang and follow him to Cal's location, so you break into another prison camp, and luckily they go in on foot so as to evade Walker's curse regarding vehicles. Finally, we have an actual proactive objective instead of just running to the next evacuation. It is such a relief. Shit. I didn't mean to switch guns, and now the good weapon is phased into the stairs. Sweet, there's a set of stairs up to a pair of turrets at high ground. It's time to pound some revenge into... There are no enemies. Like, at all. All you can shoot are the trees to watch the foliage drop. Okay, what in the actual hell's going on here? Did they forget to program a level? Why do I keep finding major swaths of map that are completely empty? They put turrets up here that serve absolutely zero purpose, and they're neither the first nor the last that I found. There's an entire arena later in the same mission, with like 5 turrets that you have no use for, and the enemies don't use them either. I think this level is completely unfinished. I've also found zombies vomiting blood and howling, which you'd think would like poison you or draw other enemies, but neither attack appears to do a damn thing. Were there supposed to be different enemy types that got scrapped at the last second? I keep finding this crap pointing to the game being pushed out half-baked, especially because the turrets that do nothing are pretty much the only interesting thing to happen this level. You just wander an empty map fighting the same basic enemies 1 or 2 at a time and never coming close to dying. Not unless you lose the quick time event fight to Trang and have to redo most of the level because they also didn't drop any checkpoints here. Just, like, you don't do anything for so much of this level. Oh, and Trang's dead now. We had one job, interrogating him for Cal's location, and he's dead. Might as well make the scene of the crime look more badass. It's not like I get to keep this ammo for the next mission anyway. In abject failure, and for lack of anything better to do, Walker heads to the command center where the top brass are hiding out. Except he goes there by helicopter, and Walker's got a reputation to keep. So a soldier blows up your chopper, and it crashes for no freaking reason. This level, you wander through a base filled with zombies, and the only weapon you're given is a shotgun. A garbage shotgun that fires ungodly slowly, takes ages to reload, has atrocious range, and it takes 4 shots to down a single zombie unless you land a headshot. And you're stuck the entire level with this piece of shit. There was a point where 7 zombies dogpiled me at once, which was a death sentence because the shotgun needs to reload after 7 shots. Crap baskets! There was actually a spot in the map where I clocked it. You have so much health that it takes at least 3 zombies at once to pose a threat to you. That's why so much of the actual gameplay feels like dead air. Funny enough, though, the shotgun wasn't the worst part of this level to me. The worst part was I could never figure out where to go. Most of the level's terrain is unused, and I wound up wandering an empty map lost for over 10 minutes because I missed a ladder behind me. But making lemonade out of lemons, my wandering the map led me to find a deposing zombie vibrating against a wall. Dickweed ruined my running joke. There's no song for I haphazardly glitched so far away. They order you to go to another temple for another evacuation because why shouldn't a 4-hour game with no story repeat the same beats over and over and over, and the game's frame rate completely shat itself because the game wants this to end even more than I do. You have to wait around letting zombies spawn, or else they trap and kill you in a tight hallway. And there's a second fight with Buckethead Zombie Dude in a tight room with nowhere to dodge. In a massive case of, this is so stupid I can't believe it worked, the key to killing this guy is to trap yourself into the furthest corners of the map and then run past the boss when he comes for you. It's the only way to get enough distance to dodge attacks, reload, and heal up. But you finally get to the chopper that leaves without you. Because snowballs have a better chance of surviving hell than choppers do surviving a ride with Nate Walker. And then, because the game's few actual story beats have written themselves into a corner, Cal just somehow calls Walker to tell him where to go for the final boss. For the last level, you're dumped into a jungle to try and find the temple where Cal's holed up. You spawn inside a fight with like 7 zombies that drained all my ammo immediately, so trying to maintain any ammunition was just a barrel of fun through this level. Seriously, there's all of one fight where you get mobbed unless you pick off zombies from above a few at a time. And it's the only dangerous fight this entire stage. The game being stingy with ammo is your biggest threat most of the time. The flashlight effect looks like the same one from the Slender Man games. And honestly, I kinda wish he was here right now for something vaguely interesting. Instead, I'm endlessly distracted by how the flashlight covers my hand and gun, neither of which cast a shadow. Yes, I am that disinterested! Oh, and I also had the personal amusement from realizing that picking up rifle magazines somehow refills the minigun's belt ammunition. Like, even if the M16 and the AK-47 use the same bullets like the game suggests, and they don't, I guarantee you that belt ammo doesn't work this way. Eventually you come to a temple where you have to fight like 50 zombies in a confined space, about, 8 at a time. They respawn constantly. You do this with a gun that takes forever to reload and nowhere near enough ammo, meaning you have to run for items and squirrel away time to rearm while never-ending zombies ferally swarm you like fake gamers onto a title with a woman in it. There actually is a trick to this fight. Some of the zombies only walk until you land a hit on them, so you just have to avoid the walkers until it clogs the game's spawn limit with enemies that can't hurt you. Why do I get the feeling that this is the best that the game's going to cough up for a final boss? Ooh, I was wrong! Another Buckethead zombie is the final boss! Except this time I have a minigun, so he got massacred like an ant. This is like if Mario could bring a BFG to fight Bowser. So here at the very end of the game is when they finally, well, they don't explain the plot, but they give you enough breadcrumbs to finally figure it out. It turns out that White Knight isn't the name of the virus, it's the name of a French scientist who created the virus. He tried to sell it to the United States as a magic superweapon to instantly win the war, but they turned it down. So he started this zombie apocalypse out of spite just to show off how powerful it was. But now he's got an antidote that he's already used to cure Cal, and he wants to be taken to the government to produce his cure and stop the plague. A good chunk of this was actually explained in a flashback at the prison, but I had no idea who the hell this guy was, so I didn't understand the game's basic exposition. This still doesn't explain why the doctor talks like Cal is a super special zombie, why Walker has those psychic visions, or or what in the hell the army injected you with at the start, but those aren't the parts that get me. And now it's time for everyone's favorite game show, You're a Dumbass! Today's contestant is White Knight, the mystery man around whom Shellshock 2's entire campaign revolves. Let's see how high Mr. Knight can climb onto the Dumbassometer! Count it off! White Knight developed a zombie plague that could destroy the world in a matter of days and then confessed as much to the United States government, assuming that he wouldn't be imprisoned for life or murdered outright for making a doomsday weapon in his basement. And I'm assuming he made this pitch in person, since otherwise he's blowing up the world over a crank phone call. White Knight, dumbass! Upon being denied payment to release his plague in Vietnam, he immediately released his plague in Vietnam, taking the job he wanted payment for and doing it for free. Double dumbass! Once starting the plague, White Knight decided the best place to hold up was smack in the middle of the infected zone of rampaging zombies that he cannot control, and where nobody would be able to reach him. Triple dumbass! And despite his entire plan being for one of the two sides to track him down, he left absolutely zero means of finding him, other than a single zombie in a massive war zone who could easily have died or escaped at any time. Quadruple dumbass! And the only way for said zombie to release said information at all was for his rookie draftee brother to not only survive the heart of a brutal war for days on end, but to be the 1 in a million chance he's the only one to find Cal! Quintuple dumbass! Why'd he think a virus would end a war when he'd still be left with an uncontrollable horde of zombies spreading across the planet? Sextuple dumbass! And after multiple days of his dumbass plan failing, White Knight cured Cal just so he could radio White Knight's location to the Americans, something he could have done him damn self at literally any time. Septuple dumbass! Thank you for playing, White Knight, and congratulations on reaching a level 7 dumbass! Cal, tell him what he's won! Oh, shit! Cal wants to shoot White Knight to stop another virus outbreak, and you have to choose whether to save Cal or save the scientist. And you better pick fast, because after a few seconds, Cal just shoots him anyway, and you get a bad ending. White Knight dies, Cal dies regardless, the United States fails to produce an antivirus, and the zombie plague overtakes the planet. There's a nice kick in the pants on top of a bleak-ass story. You failed to stop the zombie apocalypse. Game over. I had to replay the last level for the good ending, and it's not much better. You shoot Cal and capture White Knight, and they don't even say if he stops the zombie outbreak or not. He's just taken away, and Walker swears revenge. And given that Cal steps out howling insane like a banshee, I'm not sure this antidote works worth a crap anyway. Even if it does work, Walker remarks that the government will probably try to use another zombie virus in their next war because they're stupid. So, yay, you put off the inevitable zombie apocalypse for another few years. The end. And I don't know why this pissed me off, but it does. The game's credits loop endlessly to a whole 2 looped licensed songs until you manually exit them. They failed at being a game, so here's an MP3 player. Shellshock 2 Blood Trails feels like a massive troubled production. The game clearly had ambition, but it's chock full of ideas that go nowhere. Maps were obviously intended to be more open and intricate, but instead they're just badly signposted and full of dead space. They were clearly meant to be more enemy types, but instead the zombies just have multiple attacks that don't do squat. And the story was obviously meant to be more psychological, raising questions of whether supernatural forces are at work or it's all just Walker going insane from the war. But instead, you just have batshit tone whiplash layered on top of a story that barely even exists. Seriously, they end up explaining the plot by just dropping multiple threads and making its villain one of the dumbest mad scientists in history. This was not Plan A. You can just feel that this was meant to be so much more than a baffling, nonsensical zombie shooter, but something forced them to give up, pull out, and just push it out the door. but I'm not going to lament squandered theoretical potential. I'm just going to call Shellshock 2 what it is. Crap!
Well, nice of you to join us, pissant.
I saw Cal, the roadblock, a bridge.
Yeah, and Elvis singing fucking Paradise or Wine style. Mosquito gone flown up your nose, sucked all the blood out of your brain, boy.